So we wanted to talk about a couple of the votes that have come up in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Probably the one that made the most news.
Biggest waves, definitely.
Yeah, in just the last week was a vote on an amendment that would have basically stopped a lot of the spying that the NSA is doing on U.S. citizens.
Right.
So you voted no on that amendment, I believe, yes?
That's right, and it stopped all NSA activity. I think that was the challenge. There's no question that Congress needs to review the boundaries that exist for how information is accessed. And a lot of people who voted yes or no, we all agree that a legitimate review of this process has to happen. And by the way, it's going to. The chair of the House Intelligence Committee has already said we're going to be this fall that looks at this in a real substantive way. My problem with this amendment was just that. It was an all-or-nothing amendment that never went through a congressional hearing and had 10 minutes of debate on the floor of the House. And when you're talking about serious national security policy, that's not the way you go about doing it. And it was interesting how the discussion of this vote came out. I think a lot of the press tried to describe it as more this party or more that party voting one way or the other. The fact is, there were people in both parties who voted both ways. Actually, congressional leadership, John Boehner, Nancy Pelosi, they both voted no. So it's just, it's difficult to describe this as a left Republican Democrat issue. I think it's important for people to note that my no vote was based on the fact that I think that it doesn't mean it's a vote for the status quo, but it's a vote for, let's have Congress do its job. Take a look at how the Foreign Intelligence Security Act is really being implemented today, and if there are, and I believe there will be, substantive changes to that legislation to change the boundaries and change the transparency for the better of how we go about accessing information. I think that's really where we ought to go, and from all indications I've had, that is where we're going to go as a Congress, and look at that. And that's the right way to handle it, not this all-or-none amendment that came to the floor last week.
So how do you play that to the voters, though? Because we've been seeing things all week talking about, all of Utah's Republicans voted for the amendment to try and get rid of the NSA program, and it was, just the Democrat who voted no. How do you actually communicate the, I guess, kind of intricacies and complexities of that in a world that's dominated by the 24/7 media?
Well, that's a question about unique to this issue. It's really done to.
Congressman, did we lose you?
I hear you.
Oh, okay. Oh. You were cutting in and out.
You were cutting in and out there. I'm sorry. Can you repeat that?
I was just going to say that the concern you raised is not unique to this issue. I think where we are with the digital world and the 24/7 real-time nature of it and the unfiltered use of it has created a circumstance where information has had to be stripped down to bare minimums just to break through the clutter. And most political issues I find that are discussed in 100 characters or less, really, you're not discussing the issue at all. And so that is a challenge, and it is a hard one to do. And it's why it's good we're talking about this now for those listening to this program to help explain that, if it's, some of these issues actually have layers, intricacy to them, and they're important to actually think that way. I've presented myself as one of these people that's not going to be just a knee-jerk elected official, but I'm actually going to try to be a thoughtful one, and that's the reality for this issue. Said, I think sometimes we go down to the lowest common denominator, how things get communicated, and they just try to describe this issue as a partisan issue. You had the leadership of both political parties in the House of Representatives, not John Boehner and Nancy Pelosi, but Eric Cantor and Steny Hoyer. They all voted no.
Right.
And so I think that there was a sense that, and that doesn't mean they don't want to change it. In fact, there's a group of over 150 Democrats, I'm one of them, who signed a letter to the president after this vote saying, look, some of us voted yes, some of us voted no, but we all don't like the status quo and we all want to see something better and we got to work together to fix this. So that's really the approach we're trying to take, and assuming Congress fulfills its obligation and moves some type of legislation in the next few months, I think this whole issue will be in a place where I think a lot more people will be happy with the outcome.
All right. Well, fantastic. Well, one other issue that we've been hearing a lot about recently has been student loans and the kind of issues surrounding student loans, federal student loans. that's being voted on and changed and discussed in Congress, changing basically doubling the rate.
Yeah.
And I know that a lot of younger voters, especially, and just kids entering college who depend on these federal loans to get into college because of the low rates. That came up for a vote not too long ago. Can you tell us a little bit more about kind of what happened there?
Sure. Stop me if I'm getting in the weeds too much on this one, but it's a really important issue, as you suggested. This is how, look, the federal role in education has been about leveling the playing field, just if we take it up to the 100,000-foot level. That's what the federal role has been, is it's made sure that if people want to pursue education, try to smooth out some of those economic barriers for folks to do it. Grants and federal loans are really the primary function of the federal government when it comes to higher education. And it's critical that grants be maintained at a good funding level. It's also critical that subsidized student loans is a real investment. Yes, it's really important to students. It gives them the opportunity, and that's the most tangible way you can describe it. I'd like to describe it in an even better way. We all win when our student population gets better educated. This is an investment in America. This is for all of us. We are better off as a country when we educate our workforce and have a better educated society. So I think we really need to look at it in that context. Now let's get to the specifics of what you were talking about. Congress had a situation where they kept the fixed student loan rate at 3.4%, and it was extended for a certain period of time, and when that expired, it was going to double percent. That was scheduled to happen, first of all, a year ago, during 2012. And oh, by the way, that was an election year. So shockingly, I'm sure you're shocked here. Everybody came together, Democrats and Republicans, Obama and Romney, everybody. So it did get extended for another year at 3.4% to this year. Well, this year we went up to June 30th, and consensus was not reached, and it did not get renewed. That doesn't mean this issue's over, and I think we're going to fix it retroactive back to July 1. There was a bill in the House of Representatives really shifted from a fixed rate to a floating rate for students. I had concerns with that. I met with, particularly in Salt Lake Community College, which is in the 4th Congressional District, that's really the dominant higher education entity in the Congressional District is Salt Lake Community College. And I met with the financial aid officers there, and they were describing that one of the functions they do, meet with students, and they build out for each student. They talk together and try to write out kind of a financial plan for how these students can complete their educational studies. And if you have greater uncertainty with a variable rate loan, that's harder to do. And so I had real concerns with the variable rate proposal that went through the House of Representatives. By the way, not one Democrat voted for it. This was not a bipartisan vote at all. It was a purely partisan vote. And but the House did pass their version. Now the Senate has come up with one that's a little bit of a hybrid. The rate moves around in terms of when you take out the loan, it's tied to the 10-year Treasury, but when you lock in your loan that day, you got that rate for the life of the loan. It doesn't float from month to month or year to year like other variable rates do. So the Senate has come up with a bipartisan compromise that has greater certainty to it than what the House of Representatives had. I'm probably okay with it. I prefer the fixed rate. I just think it's the right investment to make in our country and our students, and it creates the best certainty. But I don't think I'm going to get a chance to vote on a fixed rate.
Well, wouldn't it have worked better, though, if we had let the student loan rates go up? Wouldn't that have just pushed students onto private loans, and wouldn't that work better?
Well, private loans come even at 6.8%. These students generally have a lot of credit, a lot of assets to back them up from. If they have an opportunity to find money that's cheaper than 6.8% out in the marketplace, they should. They should make the economic and rational decision to do it. I just don't believe those opportunities exist for most students, and that's why this federal subsidized loan program exists. This is not necessarily a group that's got a lot of credit worthiness at its front end. They're young and they haven't been doing the workforce yet. So that's the reason why we should be looking at this.
All right.